Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm here today with Shannon Mangini, who some of you know, many of you don't know, but you're going to get to know her after our conversation today because I think she's got a really interesting story to tell. It's talking about a roller coaster ride, and we want Shannon to tell us all about it. Shannon is currently is you still with the OTG Management Group, right, Shannon?
Yes, currently with OTG.
And OTG is, and we're going to get back to that, but OTG is the company that is establishing food service sites, restaurants in airports, among the many things that they do, but trying to raise that game. But I want to get to that in a little bit because
Okay.
that's sort of the end of this story. Your story, well, where you first came on our radar was when you picked up, I think, either franchise rights or some kind of rights to be able to do DeFara Pizza after Dom DeMarco passed away, and suddenly the brand was, trying to figure out what to do next, and all of a sudden you had the rights to do some, I think, out on Long Island. Is that where it all happened?
So actually it was during my time when I was working for DeFara the first time around. So we'll get into I worked for DeFara, left, and then ended up coming back kind of during pandemic. And this was actually the first time around that I had worked for them. This was pre-pandemic. So realistically, if I would have actually opened the shop and we were very close to doing it, it would have pretty much been 2, 3 months, and then we would have hit pandemic. So it was actually Dom was still alive. His kids for the most part running the business. He would still at Avenue J come up, maybe make a few pizzas, go back. But it was kind of during that time where they had opened the second location at the market in Williamsburg, and then that had gotten great traction. And in my thought, I always had wanted to open my own pizzeria, own my own pizzeria. I'd established a very good relationship with the DeMarco family and with Margaret, who is one of his daughters, who was mostly running the business at that point.
Uh-huh.
And we had gotten pretty far down the line. We had a whole licensing agreement drawn up. I had lawyers, they had drawn it up for me. We found a location. One, I mean, God, I had seen so many locations, but one that we felt confident about. I had investors lined up. And really, I had done all of the work prior to that. So when it first became something that was on my radar that I maybe wanted to do, I said, okay, what neighborhoods do I want to do this in? What am I considering?
Yeah.
And I really was thinking Manhattan. And kind of my first thought of, right, how do I kind of go about, what are my numbers going to be? What I think I can do? I can base it off of Avenue J in the market, but a little bit different model, different, Brooklyn, where Midwood is, and,
Right.
Manhattan, very different markets. So my first step and what I did was I went to all the pizzerias that I felt like were maybe comps for what I was looking to do. I would go in there, try their pizza. I would just try to talk to the staff or the owners who were there, engage, what kind of business they did. I would also actually camp out on busy days, not busy days, outside of those pizzerias for hours on end and just kind of see
Wow.
the foot traffic.
Pretty
And
serious
then
market research.
yes, because I felt like you could talk to people and, get ideas and get numbers, but to actually physically see it. And for me, this was going to be pouring my life, my heart and soul, my
Yeah.
investors, their money, some of my own money. So I just wanted to, dot every I, cross every T. And, I used all of that to then build out some financial models to kind of project and forecast what I thought I could do here, and use that actually to eventually pitch the investors.
Well, before you go forward with it, let's backtrack just a little bit because you're talking about it like somebody who has great sort of financial business experience. You did start out in the financial world before you even got into being a pizzaiola, right?
Yes. So from a young age, and I think this came from my dad had owned his own business growing up. He had a tennis and sporting goods store in Queens on Northern Boulevard.
Uh,
And one of my favorite things was to go into work with him. And even at a young age, I would say, oh, he runs this place. He's the boss. He makes the decisions. And, I didn't see all the hard work as much behind that.
yeah,
But I just thought, oh, that's cool. So in thinking about what I wanted to do and going to college and study, wanted to go into business. I ended up majoring in entrepreneurship, for that same reason, watching my dad.
yeah.
And I didn't exactly go the entrepreneurial route right out of college. I went right into investment banking and right to Wall Street for a little over 2 years.
Well, that's
Uh,
going to pay off now for you. That's for sure.
yeah, so while that was extremely grueling, those hours are no joke. I joke that my three computer screens were my best friends for those a
Yeah.
little over 2 years. There were times I didn't see my friends or family for a month or two at a time, but when I look back on it, I don't regret it at all. I think it was a great base. Understanding finances and kind of business acumen is what really helped me in each role that I had after that. And then ultimately when I was looking to do my own DeFara as well, and it's experience that, like I said, in every role that I've had since has been really really valuable. And banking hours not so different from restaurant hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only difference, one you're sitting, one you're standing, your knees and hips and back are screaming. So it's
And
very similar.
yeah, and in the financial world, the opportunity for financial payoff could be great. Um,
Yeah.
in the restaurant business, not the same odds.
No, no, not as much. And I think, part of me going into finance was kind of herd mentality where I'd grown up. The school I was in, it pretty much was a filter to Wall Street. So it's kind of like I got in that herd mentality. Again, don't
Yeah,
regret it because it gave me a great base. But the other thing was I wanted to become financially independent as quickly as possible. And so that really allowed me to do that. The other thing it allowed me to do is when I was looking to do my own projects down the line, I had some money saved up that I could put towards that to help keep as much equity as possible if we did open.
beautiful. Yeah.
Um,
But somehow you ended up at one of the most famous iconic pizzerias, in the country, if not the world, DeFara's, with under sort of the Yoda of the maybe, I don't know, the Gandalf of pizza, Dominic DeMarco. What was it like, and how did you end up getting in there? Is it just a place you had known from childhood, or what? And what was your relationship like with Dom?
Sure. So, growing up, my dad, we had always done pizza tours. When I traveled for sports, it was always, all right, what pizzeria are we going to now? And through that, he had ended up developing, Tafar was one of the spots we would go to. He ended up developing a really nice relationship with the owners there,
Mm.
particularly with Margaret, some of the brothers. He knew Dom, but Dom was a man of very few words. Anyone who's
Yeah,
been in that shop knows.
right.
Unless maybe if someone speaks Italian to him, he'll give you a little bit more, but is he cultivated that relationship with the family. And in a way, my dad throughout the years has almost been an unofficial brand ambassador for them. He really
Right.
has, spoke volumes about them, rightfully so, to everyone and anyone that he could find. And so growing up, he always brought back, either we went or he brought home DeFar Pizza when I was in college. Hey, what do you want us to bring you when we come for your game? DeFara Pizza. So after I had done banking, I then went to ESPN, did some corporate finance. It was kind of the same deal. I just every day really didn't want to go to work. Excuse me, wasn't inspired. And it ended up, they moved our office out to Connecticut. I didn't want to go. So I just took the severance package, got laid off, and I said, I'm going to go travel. Um, so I traveled for about 2 months. And throughout that time, I just said, I got to do something in food. I got to do something in food. That's just where my heart is pulling me. It kind of always has, but before I was able to kind of push it down a little bit. And at the time, I'd spoken to my dad about this, and he said, you know what? You're going to think I'm crazy, which is usually how he starts off a lot of
It's how
his
the great
things.
ideas just always start with that sentence.
Yeah. So he said, I was talking to Margaret. I was in the shop, and they're opening a second location in Williamsburg in a couple of months. Why don't you sit with her, just chat and see where it goes? And I thought, okay, I want to get into food. I don't know if they'll have me because I have zero experience. They are the mecca, the pinnacle of pizza. So,
Yeah.
what are they going to do with someone who has literally zero restaurant experience besides just growing up in a very Italian household? So I thought, I don't know. My mom chimed in and she was like what pizza? Yeah, I didn't pay for 4 years of college and
Yeah.
to go to work in a pizza shop and it was one of those things when I talked to my dad. I just had this gut feeling this is something I had to try. And a philosophy I have is just kind of no stone unturned. And I said, what can hurt?
Yeah.
whatever comes out of it comes out of it. Let's go chat. So funny enough, we chatted. It was over pizza, of course. So we went to King Umberto over in Elmont. Shout out to John Cesarano, great
Did you,
pizzeria there.
did you have a
And
grandma pizza while you were there?
yes, absolutely. Now he's got the Metro going, which is also fantastic. But so we sat down and it was Margaret, myself, and my dad, and we just got to talking, hearing what their vision was for this new location. And I'm not sure if I had the best pitch in the world, but I know that it started off with I have zero experience in the restaurant industry. I have zero experience in the pizza industry, but I know how to work hard and
Yeah.
I'm willing to do whatever it takes to learn this business and just get an in because I knew I wanted to learn it from the ground up. And we had a really great lunch. I don't remember a ton from it because I feel like I just got nervous. I realized once we sat down and we're talking to her, this was something I really wanted. I almost kind of blacked out a little bit in my pitch to her of how I was trying to sell myself. And we got on very well. And she was like, let me think about it. Let me talk to my brothers, see what we might need and where we might need help. So, I heard back from her, I think within the week, and she said, we can always use extra hands. Why don't you come down, try it for a couple of weeks, see what you think. We'll see what we think and go from there. And I think I started week 2 that it was officially open. So the family had done all the opening, Dom, all the brothers, because he has 7 kids. So 5
Wow.
boys, 2 girls. And I came in that second week and I literally think the first thing I did was I started washing dishes.
Now,
And,
was this at the Midwood location, the original?
so this was at the new
Oh,
location,
the new
the
location.
Williamsburg location. So
Oh,
I
right, right.
started there. I eventually did go over to the Midwood location. I kind of split my time more so the market because I ended up kind of being the general manager of the market location pretty quickly.
Uh-huh.
So, coming in, starting out doing dishes, within that first few weeks, there was a pizza maker who had been with Dom for a while. And he looked at me one day and he goes, do you want to learn how to make pizza? And I was like, yeah, I thought you'd
Yeah.
never ask. Like, I didn't want to be presumptuous. I didn't want to, kind of ask for something too soon, but I was like, absolutely, I would love to. So,
The words you
I
were
still
waiting
have
for.
that memory of that making that first pie and, the feel of the dough on your hands and
Yeah.
uh, magical experience.
Well, so that's how you first started. You became a pizzaiola at that point.
Yes, yes. And then, making sauce, prepping ingredients. And I really ended up taking on a much larger role once I kind of established myself and I guess proved myself, so to speak. And I did have this business background. And so I ended up, I looked at this business and I just said, not that it's all about money, but there's ways in which they can really maximize, get their name out there. I mean, when I got there, they didn't have a website. The website that was actually online was run by someone who they had no idea that person was collecting all the ad revenue and it wasn't even their real menu. So I got them a website. I started really building out their social media, started building out, I started pizza making classes, which were so much fun and were such a big hit. We did that at Avenue J as well as at the market. And then, I was the one who kind of controlled the emails and in a sense became a little bit of an assistant to Margaret as well. And you would be floored at the amount of things that come through that email of just opportunities. And, I think they were so busy, they just didn't
Yeah.
have time to really pay attention. But they had things come through, to do commercials, to do food and wine festivals internationally, to be a part of other festivals. And that's kind of another hat I put on. And then later on, kind of the licensing for food trucks and ghost
You,
kitchens, things like that.
you showed up at the right person at the right time because they needed a pair of fresh eyes. They're old school. They've been doing it their whole life. They can't see outside the forest, and now
Yep.
you're bringing them, like a whole new perspective. The 2021 years, whatever it was, whatever year that happened, that you were bringing them into modern age,
Yeah.
and so sounds like the timing couldn't have been better. So where did it go from there?
So from there, it was just kind of continuing to build the business in different facets. Like I said, starting these classes, participating, in these festivals, merchandising, we had gotten to do one really cool food and wine festival over in Melbourne, Australia. So they had invited us out, and Margaret was like, I don't know, like I don't really get on planes. Like I couldn't
Right.
even really get her to go to Pizza Expo. I was trying to get her to go. And she's like, I don't know. And they said, you can bring a total of 4 people. So we're like, all right, who's going to go? None of her brothers wanted to go. So I had a good friend who had, I introduced to Margaret. They hit it off. He's a really good home cook. And then she had brought a friend who had kind of been in the business here and there. And we went over to Australia to do a collab with a restaurant over there called Harley and Rose. It was one of those moments where I learned that you can't just take a recipe, bring it somewhere, and it's actually going to work out.
Right.
I had started making the dough, and it was a complete slop mess.
Oh boy.
And it was a lot of trial and error through the night to actually get the dough to where we wanted it. And we, like I said, we did that collab with them, and they had a full service restaurant, and the oven was in the back outside. And we came in, and the restaurant was like, they'll order off our menu, they'll order off your menu. We'll see how it goes. No, everybody ordered off the Far menu. So we were just cranking, cranking, cranking. We couldn't keep up. But it was similar to Avenue J, where people typically wait 2 hours for a pie. Um,
Was one of
and
the
so
challenges with that dough, was it because it was a different flour or because you were in the Southern Hemisphere, or what caused it to be so challenging?
they couldn't source our exact ingredients. So they had sent some substitutes to me, which I had researched, talked to some people, thought, okay, this will probably be a good substitute. I mean, the other thing, which looking back, again, a learning lesson is, you know, DeFara, which I think many people know this, there's no measurements.
Yeah.
It is a handful of this, even though my hand is different from Dom's hand, is different
Right, right,
from
right.
the brother's hands, a pinch of this, a shake of that. So that didn't work over there. And, I should have known going over there, hey, this isn't going to work. But I thought, I didn't really know at that time. Because
Did
if
you
I had
didn't
made
know?
dough, if when I made dough anywhere else, it still kind of works. So maybe there was some Southern Hemisphere, you know, elements making it a little bit different. But, that's just kind of some cool things that we ended up doing, doing Slice Out Hunger that Scott Wiener puts on. That was amazing. We did a
Oh
Martha
yeah.
Stewart festival, the Bronx Pizza Festival, which was another dough mishap. We ended up borrowing dough from another pizzeria, unbeknownst to everyone there. But hey, you know what? I wish I remember their name. It made a great pizza.
Well, before we move off of the DeFara phase of your life, which was an important phase, but only just a small piece of the bigger picture for you. Um, can you just for those people who have heard of DeFaras or are listening to us today, but have never been to DeFaras, never had what is there anything you can point to that defines what makes their pizza so special? Is it just simply because Dom was the one who was making it, or was there something special and unique about their process?
Yeah, I think there's a few elements. I think a the ingredients that they use and not compromising on those ingredients. The bills that they would have, the invoices I would see. I mean, it's expensive ingredients. So I think first and foremost that at the Avenue J location, which I did start working at 1 or 2 times a week. They had originally been closed on Mondays, so we decided to open them back up. I think there is something to be said about that oven and how seasoned
Uh,
those
uh,
stones are. It also, again, unbeknownst to anyone, unless they were at the oven making the pizzas at that spot. So it was a gas oven, really old school, grandfathered in, wouldn't be approved today.
yeah.
But there was one very interesting element in the back right corner where the stone was cracked and kind of had chipped off. So you would get at times a live flame coming up into that
Ah,
chamber,
interesting.
which extremely dangerous, most likely, if you talk to any code inspector.
The
But
secret ingredient.
exactly. So it almost, while it's a gas oven and the style and what you would get from that, it also did have kind of that flame a little bit. And I won't say wood fire because there wasn't wood, but there's a char when there's an actual flame. And I
Yeah,
think it was actually poetic in that, Jafar, I won't get into the recipe, but it is a
yeah.
blend of flours. It's a neo New York really when you break down the flour
Right.
and the ratios. And so it was almost poetic that, New York typically made in a gas oven, but then you have some, maybe double zero in there that's typical to a Neapolitan. So you kind of have that wood fired live flame in there that's giving it, that sort of imparting that flavor. So, I think those two things. And, third, what I've really experienced in this industry is people like a story, they like an experience. And when you would go into Avenue J and Dom would be out in front, it was a show.
Yeah.
I have like a little bit of chills. He was such a master of his craft. He
Yeah.
took his time. He did not care people were waiting 2, 3 hours because to
Right.
him, it was the integrity of the product. So he
Yeah,
would take his
that was one
time,
thing
do
he
his
was
thing.
famous for was that the slowest pizza maker in the world. People just
Yes.
they did go for the show.
Yeah, so I think it was part of that and just, his legend. And he really did build this. I forget how old he was, but they opened it in 65. And for the longest time, he was the only one who was up there. No one could come up there. The first day I went over to Avenue J, I was scared. I didn't know how he was going to receive me. I think it helped that I was a young female and maybe reminded him of his daughters. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
he was okay with me being up front. Um, and what was really special is on some of the days he wasn't up there. He was just a bit older at the time, couldn't be up there all day. But so I would be up there, me, one other pizza maker, Margaret. We'd be making pies, and then all of a sudden he'd decide, yeah, you know what, I'd like to make a couple of pies. So then he would come sauntering from the back and
Yeah.
kind of just hand motions like, I got this kind of thing. We would, just make sure he had everything he needed, topping, sauce, everything. Stayed out of his way, and he'd make a couple of pies, and then when he was kind of tired, he'd go and sit down, and then we'd take back over.
Wow.
That was really special and something I cherish. It um, didn't last too long because just as he got older, he was less and less likely to come up. But he was really always in the back. And Margaret, she's an incredible cook. Would just be making him food all day.
Wow. Well, what a fabulous opportunity you had, number one for yourself, but also that you were then helping to bring the company into modern times and give them a new perspective, which I'm not sure what they've done with it since. I don't know whether the growth and the scaling up of the company, because I mean, you can't scale up an oven with a crack in it with a flame that shoots out. You can't scale up the slow, care and craft that Dominic DeMarco would put into each pizza if
Right.
you're not going to honor that slowness and you don't have the legend. So speed becomes important, and you know counting the cost of every ingredient becomes important as you scale up. So I don't know how that's translated to the company. And when you tried to extend the brand, did that become a challenge for you?
Yeah, because I think, they had done the Williamsburg location. And then in terms of when I was looking to, like I said, got approached to do a ghost kitchen, got approached to do a food truck, approached to do other locations constantly, me looking to do my location. It was okay, we can't duplicate Dom. That's not going to happen. And even
Yeah.
if I'm doing it, it's not the same as Dom doing it. So we
Right.
knew we couldn't recreate that. But I think what we focused on was continuing to use those quality ingredients and not, just going for the cheaper thing. Speed, especially if we were going to be in Manhattan, was going to be crucial. So what I tried to do was look at, what equipment or what processes can we, do or figure out to get this same kind of pizza. And one thing that I really landed on, and I went out to their Connecticut office that do test trials, and then once we did that, was going to show to Margaret and her brothers, if they felt the quality was the same. Was we went out to Pizza Master and went to their Connecticut spot where we did a bunch of test bakes. And funny enough, my dad was there as well, and he was like, this is just as good as anything I've ever had there. Like he was like, I don't want to make you feel bad, but going in, I wasn't sure you're going to be able to do this and
Yeah.
recreate it. But he was like, you really did. And, there
Wow.
were some other things that, Dom had done in kind of a longer time ago, we're talking 20, 25 years, such as, finishing the pies with really aged Parmigiano Reggiano, things like
Yeah.
that. Some of that, as the years went on in that original location, for cost purposes, did fall off a little bit. And so, my idea was kind of how can I bring a couple of those old school elements back, make it cost effective.
Yeah.
And I tried to recreate his actual older recipe, and make it cost effective. So it was kind of playing around. I really love the Pizza Master. I thought it created an excellent Tafara round, an excellent Tafara square,
Uh-huh.
um,
So
and
you
something that the family would approve.
so it was working. You were making that transition, into a modern iteration of Dafara, and then but you're not there anymore. So what happened to you? At some point, you decided to leave Dafara and go into, your story continues, and you ended up, that would be enough experience for some people to go, I could live on that for the rest of my life. But then you've taken a couple other steps since. So take us through the transition of leaving Dafaras and going on into the restaurant business.
Sure. So it was a tough decision to leave, but I think in my gut, I felt like I had learned a lot here. I had been exposed to a lot. I think when my licensing deal kind of fell through, I was a little bit like, I can keep working here, but there's not much more for me to learn. And that next step was going to be the licensing. Ultimately, the family just didn't want to do it. Um, and that's fine. I understand that, you got to make a decision for yourselves, your business. So I kind of said, you know what, I need to move on. And, in my mind, I knew I wanted to get full service restaurant experience, because, I thought maybe one day I open a pizzeria, but in that pizzeria, I was even thinking about, I wanted to do little apps and salads and
Yeah.
get a little more creative with it. The old The Farm menu actually had a lot of that stuff on it too.
Interesting.
Heroes, so I wanted to bring that old school piece back. So I'd already had in my mind, I want to get some full service experience. So I went and did that with a group in Manhattan, about like a 250 to 300 seat restaurant.
Wow.
Uh,
It's
so
a
I
big.
had worked for them, serious volume, serious covers, and I was a manager for them. Um, and I was doing that. I learned a ton, and then March 2020 happened. We kind of all know how that went.
Yeah, it's
So
kind of like hitting the wall.
yes, so I went in for my closing shift. I was the closing manager typically, and we had a call at the end basically saying New York's shutting down on Tuesday. No one come in for work tomorrow. So I was like, okay,
It was
now
literally
what?
the closing shift.
Yes, yes, literally the closing shift. So, kind of what do I do now? What's going on? What's this COVID thing? How long is it going to stay
Yeah.
around? And, you know, we had realized it was probably going to be a little bit more than 2 weeks. So, my friends and I at the time said, let's get out of New York. We actually went out to California and Sedona and just enjoyed ourselves out there.
Yeah.
But while I was out there, in Phoenix, I went to Chris Bianco's spot, and just, fell in love with his pizza.
Yeah.
It kind of reinvigorated me back into that pizza mind. I was like, God, I love this. I got to get back to this. So when I came home from that, me and my dad were like, because he was basically laid off at the time as well. Same with my mom and my brother. And so I was bored. I was like, we got to do something here. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Margaret actually had, this is where I go back to the Fara. Margaret had needed more people because Avenue J was busier than ever because now people didn't have a job. They could wait 2, 3 hours for a pie.
Right. True.
Um, and then she was also building out a gold belly business, which was
That's right. Yeah.
flourishing throughout the pandemic.
Yeah.
So,
That was the explosion for Gold Belly, which is
yes,
now becoming one of the great success stories of the food service industry.
great timing for him.
Yeah.
Hats off. Really great business because kind of before we were like, what's this gold belly thing? I don't know. They had been trying to get us for years before the pandemic. But anyway, we jumped into that. So she was sending out really hundreds to thousands of pies a day. So I came in, I was doing production, I was, overseeing the whole operation, and then a day here and there working at J again.
Wow.
Um, and also while I was doing that, I just said again, like this, I'm back in it. It's nothing that's that new. So my dad said, hey, why don't we maybe do some pop-ups? I had a friend who had a wood fire trailer. They were going to let us borrow it.
Ah,
Um, and I said, all right, yeah, let's try it. First, we didn't use the wood fire trailer. We had a friend who had a B&B out on the North Fork on Long Island in Jamesport. They had
nice.
some ovens, and we would go out there. We set up at the B&B. We tried to advertise a little bit. what was amazing was that area was, no pun intended, but super hungry for some sort of food establishment. And in that neighborhood, you could kind of walk there. So we opened up there, was running the pop up out of there under the DeFara monocle, and
Oh,
it was great. We had so many people come out. Paulie G came out. That was really fun. We had just a lot of other people. My family came out. It was just wonderful because it was a place. I was in the kitchen pretty much by myself. My dad was front of house, so we were really a two-man team there. And then they had this beautiful outdoor seating, so it was just really nice in a time when it was, things were sad, things, a lot was going on in the world, but you saw everyone kind of come together and they were, laughing and enjoying the pizza, and the beach was right across the street. So we would do deliveries to the beach, just a safe place that everyone could be outside. And that was our first pop-up spot. Then we started talking with wineries and breweries throughout Long Island, ended up popping up there, had the wood-fired oven, and we didn't do just pizza. I mean, we were doing lobster rolls, chicken fingers, garlic knots, pretzels.
you
It
and
was
your
really,
dad seemed like a real dynamic team together.
yes. So I had the kind of the food portion on lock. My dad is the ultimate salesman. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. It's insane.
Yeah.
So he was all front of house, and that was his jam. And we worked really well together. I think they were long, long days, and there were times where, working with family can always be tricky, right? But I
Yeah.
think me and my dad have such a wonderful relationship that at the end of the day, no matter what happened, it was always just like, yeah, you didn't mean that. I didn't mean this. We were just stressed. We had to get the order out, and
Yeah.
we were fine. And the other beautiful thing about that experience was it wasn't just my dad. In the beginning, it started as the two of us, but my uncle had saved the day a few times. My little cousin started working for us, which was one of my favorite parts of it all. He was an incredible worker. My mom would come out. My brother came out and helped. My aunts, my grandmothers came out. They didn't help, but they were taste testers. It
This
was
sounds
really
like
beautiful.
a made for TV Hulu series or something.
It could have been. I
The
mean, at one of
Mangini.
yeah, at one of the breweries, it was really, we had tickets. It was timing because, chicken fingers, lobster rolls, pizza, all different timing. My
Yeah.
parents aren't from the restaurant. They didn't understand all of that. And so I did have a few Gordon Ramsay moments where I was just like, how much time on this? And, I'm yelling out. And, but like I said, at the end of the day, we had such a good time with it, great memories. And it was hard work, but, I'd do it all over again.
But that now led to the next step in your career because we're still like just taking steps by steps to become who you currently are.
Yes. So kind of coming off of that, I was still working for DeFara, and then at the time when I was doing the pop-ups, I was basically working 7 days a week. Once winter hit, the pop-ups kind of fell off, and then we came into the new year of 2021. Yeah, 2021.
Amazing, amazing how much
And
happened in such a short period of time.
yes, a lot happened. And in about January of 2021, Steven Starr had reached out to me. I had been in previous talks with him a couple of years prior when I was kind of the Smith, and I had been talking with them a little bit. Um, they weren't ready at the time, I think, to either take me on or kind of do something with pizza. So in January of 21, he had reached out, and I was kind of ready again to move on. And for me, he's also kind of the mecca of restaurateurs. Going to school in Philly, I used to save my work study money to then go downtown and just go to all of his
Oh,
restaurants.
really? So
Um,
you spent a lot of time in Philly. That's my hometown. So and
oh,
of
okay.
course
Yes. Yeah. I went to school there.
Steven Starr is a legend in Philly for some of the great restaurants, and he's taken some of them to New York and
Yeah.
beyond. So how did you get on his radar?
So when I had worked at the market with Fortifara, there were other business owners within that market. One of those business owners, who owns a place called Chuko Ramen, he had previously worked for, do you know what I'm talking about?
No,
Okay. His name's Jameson Blankenship.
no, no.
Um, I had just become friendly with all the owners there because, in a sense, while I wasn't an owner, I was kind of the one running that spot. So, I made friends with a lot of them, and I kind of talked to him about what I was thinking of doing, and He was like, you know what? I have Steven Starr's number. He knew I went to school in Philly, and he said, let me shoot an email, set you guys up, just talk. And I was like, oh my God, like, thank you so much. Absolutely. I would love to speak with him. And that was kind of that first iteration when we were having conversations. I ended up going and working for, the group in the city. But, lo and behold, January of 2021 comes
Yeah.
around, and he really was thinking of doing something in pizza. And so he gave me a call. I interviewed with them, and they brought me on. I think it was March of that year, and started working for him and did a lot of different things there. My title there was Director of Special Projects and Pizza Concepts.
That's a great
Um,
title.
it was like, for me to have pizza in my title, my friends thought I was
People
joking
would
when I
kill
told
for a
them my
title
title.
like that.
Yeah. And then I was like kind of colloquially known in the company as just the director of pizza, which was very cool.
So did you live in Philly while you were doing that? Were you based there in Philly or were you coming down from New York?
So I was coming down from New York.
No.
So I was, because I didn't just work on pizza just in Philly. Originally, when I started, I think it was about a 10-week training working in a lot of the restaurants in New York.
Uh,
So I was based there first. I was living in Greenpoint, Brooklyn at the time. And then thereafter, we got a little bit into pizza. So I started traveling to Philly, started doing some tastings for Steven and the higher ups. And then, there were also points where I kind of filled in at other restaurants. So Upland in New York, Pizzeria Stella down in Philly,
well,
working the
that's the
line
one I
there.
know of. Stella was his first pizza restaurant, as I recall. Because I
Yeah,
remember years ago being contacted by them to do some, you know,
consulting.
minor consulting. So I remember that. But so, what was the new pizza direction that he wanted to go into that he brought you in for?
So we had a couple of different ideas, but I think ultimately he wanted to do something. One iteration was kind of something reminiscent of a DeFara, a New York slice shop, because as you know, Stella was more, it's neo-Neapolitan, but
Yeah,
it's wood-fired oven, small format.
yeah,
And that's really kind of a restaurant. They have pastas, apps, everything. So he
right.
wanted to do a slice shop. And that's kind of where he wanted to lean on me for kind of that expertise and experience that I had at DeFara, because
Perfect.
he loved the pizza there. So we had done a lot of tastings, probably too many tastings to the point where like everything's just blending. But as you know, with pizza, so many variables you can change, and a little bit of hydration, maybe doing a little bit different of a mix of flours, trying completely new flours. So it was a lot of trial and error. And what we had was, I loved that when I got there, he had bought a 3-deck 900 series Pizza Master.
Uh,
So when
you
I
already
walked in and
knew.
saw that, I was like, oh, game on! This is great. I didn't
Yeah.
know what I was going to be working with. So we had this room that, I'll say it's an R&D kitchen. It was kind of a construction zone, but there was the 900 series Pizza Master in the corner. I had a pizza prep table, and I would do all of my other prep for dough and stuff at Stella, and then bring it up. And some days I was just in there testing by myself. We would have tastings. I also worked with a very, very talented chef that still works for him, Shane Solomon. And he and I were the ones who are really going to be, um, bringing this concept to fruition. And
Wow.
so while we were there, not just doing tastings, once we found our first spot, we really started looking at, okay, square footage, what volume can we do out of here? We're looking at, schematic layouts, where we're going to put everything, what's the flow going to be like? And then I would, because of my background, one day be making the pizza with Shane, but then I would also maybe the next day be putting on the blazer and going and talking with finance and looking at construction budgets, pro formas, things like that. And, same thing with marketing, or kind of any other facet that you need to open the business. And then I would also be there for when we started construction, because we did start construction on an original place. I was the one there meeting the GC and talking on calls with architects and engineers and stuff that was kind of over my head, but all I did was took notes, and then I would Google everything and try to figure out, what
You're kind of like
exactly
a
was going
project
on.
director at that
I
point.
was, I
Yeah.
was. I ended up being project managing it, so I was really involved in, every facet of it.
So this is like once again, I hate to rush through this because I don't. Before we run out of time, we still have a whole other step in your career ascent. I mean, again, once again, you had a job that many people would be so happy to just say, run it out there. You were one of the great restaurant groups in the country. A visionary restaurant leader like Steven Starr. First of all, did the slice shop idea ever scale out and kind of happen? Is it going now?
So unfortunately, that the original one I was just talking about, where we were kind of, I would say, halfway through construction, had really started on a lot of marketing. We had done, a lot of renderings. We had ordered a lot of equipment. We couldn't end up going there due to kind of technical reasons of the
Yeah.
building it was in, the condo association that was a part of it. So we couldn't go there. We found a second location. Shane and I had just kind of looked at numbers, looked at operationally. We said, this probably isn't going to work. Then we looked at a third location, which would have been more of a full restaurant, similar to Estella.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, he just felt like, I thought this was going to be a slice shop. I think that's really what he wanted to do. Also, he had been approached to do so many projects coming out of COVID that were, 15, 20, 25, 30 million a year kind of restaurants. And, a lot of his focus went there, which, I completely understand it. It's a business decision.
It's
So it
tough.
never came to fruition,
It's
essentially.
amazing you can get that close, and then go, "Eh,
Oh,
not quite yet. Because, and of course, the slice shop concept right now is about the hottest category there is in the
yes.
pizza world. So,
It was heartbreaking, honestly, because I had come there with a lot of high hopes. I understand the decisions he made, and ultimately, it was one of those things where I felt like, okay, I need to maybe move on. And I said to him, as I was leaving, please, if you ever consider doing this again,
yeah.
give me a call. Even if it's in just some sort of consulting capacity, or just to maybe be a fly on the wall.
Well,
I'd love to hear from you.
one thing we've learned about you in this conversation so far is you're really resilient. Number one, you're really resourceful, and you don't burn bridges. You went back
Yeah.
to the far. I mean, and so you've kept your friends, which is a great thing. And who knows if you'll end up back there? But you had another card to play. Somehow you ended up, working in for OTG, right? And uh, that's a management group that operates restaurants everywhere, but mainly known for the airport work, right?
Yeah, so OTG is an airport concessionaire, and they had approached me kind of at that time where I was really, I don't know if this is going to happen at Star, and I feel like I need to go and do something else, maybe come back if they change their mind. But what really attracted me to OTG is they're game changers in the airport concession space. They really put their money where their mouth is in terms of food quality. If you've been to the New York airports, they're in JFK, they're in LaGuardia, they're in Newark. They do things like hand making their own pasta at airport locations. I mean, a lot of Italian brick and mortar restaurants don't even do that. So there's just, when I heard that, and coming from, like a slightly chef background in pizza, that was something I felt like I could get behind. And then the actual job itself. So I'm the senior director of partnerships and brands. So I do talk
You get
food.
these titles every time you make a leap. You get these great titles. You got to have a wall of all the titles that you've had.
But it was just, I got to do and talk all day, every day about food. So part of my job starting off is, we think about an airport that we want to go into, a city, or we think about airports that are kind of releasing these things called RFPs, requests for proposals, where they're saying, hey, we want new concessions. So what I do first is I'm researching what food concepts are there, what's popular, what do people love, what do I love when I've been there, what do friends that I have live there, what do they love, and I reach out to them, and I talk to them about OTG, see if they'll want to be a part of our bids,
Uh-huh.
and basically onboard them, and we're licensing their brand and everything, which was also something that my DeFar experience kind of came in handy with doing my own licensing and then
Right.
licensing deals for them. So then once we have them onboarded and a proposal is released by an airport, we'll look at kind of the aesthetic and theme they're going for, and then how do we want to strategically think about the brands that we have and where we want to place them. And within this job, I get to sit in on menu development conversations and actually have a say. This company, it's incredible in that, even I've only been here for 6 or so months. My opinion and my thought is valued, and I actually have, a say. And it's just wonderful to be talking about things I love all day. And the best part, and this is similar to doing something like this with you, is you meet so many people. I've met so many wonderful business owners,
Yeah.
and have made relationships. And the one piece that I try to bring to this job to kind of a little bit make it my own is I really like to look for brands that not only have good food and good reputation, but maybe are women owned, minority
Yeah.
owned,
Yeah.
different groups that maybe don't always get these chances. And that's kind of like my little um, way of giving back or doing something good. And also just what I would love to see, because I was almost a female business owner, and I know the trials and tribulations I
Yeah.
had in doing that. And
And you're
so
also part of that community of women in pizza that has
yes,
been really helping to again extend that concept, the brand of women ownership and women taking the front role. Uh,
exactly.
it's again, this is we're in a new age, we're in a new era, and it sounds like you're part of not only be part of it, but working with other people that are like that. But the thing that about the airport concept that kind of blows my mind is having been eaten at many airport restaurants over the years, it's always underwhelming experience. It's you always feel like they've taken famous brands and you're getting the B or C team version of that particular brand. So for you to be able to create a shop in an airport where you have all sorts of challenges, like whatever the
Oh,
rules are within
spatial
the airport
requirements,
itself. Yeah, the
permitting.
unions that they have to work with, or there's food service companies that they have to deal with there. So you
Exactly.
always feel like you're working with one hand tied behind your back. How you pull that off is, I think, pretty. It's got to be a great story.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, it's one hand tied behind your back, and really the other hand is tied there too, because if you think about the mindset of a passenger coming through an airport, they're stressed, they're rushed, especially, maybe they're running late or they have kids, and it's sometimes they're already in a bad framework. And you come in and you might have an experience, but you're already in a bad headspace. So then that passenger not happy with things. And I think the other piece that OTG does well is because we actually staff and we run all those locations, is bringing hospitality to the airports. We try to do that. We try to mitigate that stress by we have at some of our locations where you can just order off of the QR code and get the food even faster, because most
Yeah.
of the time it's before they sit, how long is the food going to take,
Right.
so
Right.
you can mitigate that right away. You sit, it's up to you, you can order right away. And we do operate in smaller kitchens. Storage is always an issue, but like I said, we really try to stay as true to the brands that we license as possible. And we source from who they source from. We don't just go to US Foods, Cisco, maybe that's who they source from, but if they have small purveyors,
Yeah.
who use very specific products, organic products, whatever it might be, we have a whole supply chain that's dedicated to that and sourcing from them. So we're not just slapping the brand on and then making the recipes our own. We're really working with that licensee and say, come in and try the food. You're not happy, we'll have our chefs there that day or the next day, and rework that dish until you're happy with it.
Awesome.
So we really take the food quality piece very seriously, and then bringing some of that hospitality, I'd say,
Well,
with
Shannon,
the game changers.
I feel like I could spend the whole rest of the day talking with you about this because to me this is fascinating. Your whole story is fascinating. Here you are. I'm looking at you. You've got to be, what are you 30 years old yet?
I'm 31. I'm 31.
31 years old. You've lived a lifetime of lifetimes. Each one of these adventures that you've had has been, not only fabulous for your experience, but it's like it's a lifetime unto itself. So you've accomplished a lot. I feel like you're just still at the beginning of your career, and who knows where it's all going to lead. And so I'd love to have you come back another time, and maybe also when you have some particular, let's say, if you've launched some new brands at the airports, to tell
Yeah,
us about them
absolutely.
so
Yeah, I'd
that we
love to get
can.
into that right now. I know I had said to you I can't because it is
Yeah.
confidential, but I think the one thing coming off of this, and if anyone who listens to this can take it away, who isn't in the industry or is thinking about it, look at where I started. And, now I've had a bunch of positions that were really fun. Yes, I had to start over a bit and start at the bottom, but, I'm just so happy in the role I have now and kind of the roles I've had before. And, especially for any women out there who are, gosh,
Yeah.
do I want to do this? Do I want to get into pizza? please do. If I can help anyone in any way,
If
please
people want
reach
to,
out to me.
if people would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So my professional pizza Instagram, that's probably the best way.
Okay.
So it's just the Pizzaiola.
The Pizzaiola. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can
Okay,
reach
I
out
knew
to
about
me
that.
there.
I'm following that one. And then okay, so you'll start there. I'm going to write this down so I can put this in the notes when we post the show. La Pizzaiola, right?
The
La Pizzaiola.
Pizzaiola, yeah, with an A.
La
And the other
Pizzaiola.
thing, I would say that really I ran up against was every single person in my life told me not to do this, told me not to go into food, not to go into pizza. They thought I was crazy with, the education I was fortunate enough to have.
Yeah.
Just, don't do this, don't do this. The one person who told me to keep going was my now wife. She's the only one who was like, yeah, you got to do this. Like, you got to follow your gut. You got like, go do this.
Yeah.
And I don't know without her if I would be sitting and talking with you today. I really don't know.
You gotta
You need
have
that
that
one
person in
person.
your yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Shannon, it's been a delight talking with you and getting to know you, and can't wait to hear. I feel like we're just at chapter one or two of an unfolding saga. Like I said, this could be a TV series. So we'll work on that together down the road. And also now, from one takeaway for me from this conversation is if I know of any brands, emerging brands that might be appropriate for airport, you know,
Oh, please, yeah.
scamming. Should I send them to you? Can I put you together with them?
Please send it to me. If we are thinking of going after that market or we're currently in there, absolutely. It does go along with the cadence of when the airports are actually releasing their concession spaces, but I value that most. I love word of mouth. And thank you so much for having me on this. When you had approached me, Alex had said it. I was like, why would I don't know. He wants me on this because you just interviewed Wiley Dufresne, and then you have my pizza gods who are Laura Meyer, Audrey
Yeah.
Kelly, Nicole Bean. Those are
But
those are the gods to me.
well,
And
and
so
again, you paid your dues. You've networked with some of the best and the brightest, but this show is really more about the quest than it is even about the pizza. The pizza is just sort of I call it the MacGuffin of the show. We hook people with pizza, but we're really talking about this deeper search for meaning and purpose in life. And I think that your journey, personifies that. You've been digging in. You've been searching your short but whole life. To answer those deeper questions. And I think we still only just scratched the surface today. So I would love to continue this conversation in the future.
absolutely, I
We'll
would
get
love that.
back with you and give you a chance to get some of the concepts up and running, so we can actually talk about some of them too. I'd love to do that.
Absolutely, I would love that, Peter. Thank you.
All right. Well, Shannon Mangini, thank you again for being on Pizza Quest today. Thank all of you for joining us today. Stay tuned for future episodes. And who knows, a little bit down the road, we'll get together with Shannon again and catch up with the next iteration in her story. Thanks, Shannon.